You know the saying, you don't need to reinvent the wheel? These companies have had to reinvent the damn car. Strategically, it's a huge blunder for these big tech monopolies to be so censor friendly. That goes against the very ethos, the very grain of what the platform business model is supposed to do. Honestly, there's nothing even that novel about these. Like, when you look at the technology, this is like Facebook 10 years ago. What I coined as my 5 oxymorons, actually about a year ago in January of 21. At the time, everyone was saying these, what they call now, alt tech content platforms, social media platforms. Oh, no one's using these things. Oh, disregard these things. Oh, these are of no consequence, right? Now, fast forward a year later, you have multiple unicorn, multi-billion-dollar valued businesses. You have some of these content platforms have more traffic and engagement than Twitter does in the United States. Twitter only has a little over 30 million monthly active users in the United States. Multiple of these platforms are doing well past that, operating on a shoestring budget. So what's going on here? What's that going to look like for 2022? Basically, I think all the things that have helped to contribute to their success, I'm going to call them my vendetta platforms. My vendetta platforms, which would range from a Rumble on a kind of lining up with the YouTube on a content platform side, to a Gab, a Gettr on the kind of social media, Facebook, Twitter end of the spectrum. And there's a lot of overlap in between with how you are engaging with content and how these platforms are set up. But there's many more than just those few that I listed. Why are we here today? How is it that multiple of these platforms have over 30 million monthly active users, have now multi-billion-dollar valuations? And the answer is that the tech monopolies have actually done this. They've helped the vendetta platforms to get tens of millions of users. And I had the CEO of Odyssey, another content platform YouTube competitor, on the show, and we were talking about this exact thing. It doesn't make sense. Strategically, it's a huge blunder for these big tech monopolies to be so censor friendly, to be so thought policing, to literally take the book 1984 and double it in terms of censorship, right? It's insane what they're doing. And whenever you think that they might reassess, no, they double down, right? It's like a bully. I'll do more. I'll do worse. That is what big tech is doing when it comes to censorship. And strategically, it doesn't make any sense. It really is one of those things where, as the CEO of Odyssey put it, they are driving all these users to their platform. They are censoring. And this censorship, by the way, has been going on long before 2021. The censorship has been going on for years. We've had multiple people on the show for years talking about how they've been censored. We've had people from the crypto community on the show, right? It's nothing to do with politics. Talking about things that don't fit in line with what big tech and the mainstream media deem appropriate. And as a result of that, they get banned. At the very least, they get shadow banned. At the most, they get banned and all their videos and content are gone. We've had people from the crypto community on the show who had hundreds of thousands of subscribers on YouTube, and then boom, kicked off YouTube, no warning, all their videos gone, all the content they created gone, and all that following gone because they were talking about crypto and topics that YouTube felt was inappropriate. That goes against the very ethos, the very grain of what the platform business model is supposed to do. It's supposed to connect people, to facilitate the exchange of information and ideas and creativity, not hamper it and thwart it and regulate it. And it's funny, this is actually one of the second chapter in our book, Modern Monopolies, was talking about how basically like communist countries, if you go back into like the Soviet Union in the 60s, they were dreaming of having this ability to have a centrally coordinated economy, centrally planned and controlled economy, which is delivered to you on a silver platter by the platform business model. And you've now just seen the abuse of this power, not only by communist countries like China and Russia, but by the heads of these big tech monopolies and their desire to control people and what they think to get the outcome that they would like. It's a very sad thing, but the good news is that our vendetta platforms are on the rise. The reason I like calling them the vendetta platforms is because this is actually has nothing to do with politics. This is not an alt-right thing, alt-left thing. This has to do with freedom. This has to do with piercing the veil that is big tech monopolies. And if you ever watched that movie V for Vendetta, it's very much so rising up against totalitarian, authoritarian powers, whether that's a government or a big tech monopoly, and to, bring freedom and liberty and free speech. Honestly, there's nothing even that novel about these. Like when you look at the technology, this is like Facebook 10 years ago, right? I mean, the difference is that they're just not taking their censorship to the nth degree. It's now given rise to our vendetta content platforms and social media platforms. They're on the rise. That rise is going to continue throughout 2022. We have now multiple unicorn companies. I think you could actually see some of these vendetta platforms breach a $10 billion watermark. They're reaching a point of critical mass where now you've got not just 10, 20, but you got 30, now probably approaching 40 million monthly active users. That's a lot of people, right? You got to remember, Twitter only has 30-ish million monthly active users in the United States. How many of those are actually real, not bots that they've just forgotten to scrub out of their numbers? It's a lot of people. So let's talk about some of the players and what's happened more recently. Joe Rogan has now joined Gettr. Gettr was started by a guy named Jason Miller, and Jason Miller was, I don't know if he still is, but it, was an advisor to Trump. Gettr has an app, has apps on the iPhone, on Android. Just in case shit over at Twitter gets even dumber, I'm here now as well. Rejoice, Joe Rogan wrote in his inaugural post on Gettr. This was Gettr's email. Joe Rogan signed up. We had over 230,000 people sign up in one day. It's our biggest day since launch. This was just a few days ago they sent this email out. A bunch of politicians joining Gettr. They've got a bunch of, influencers, celebrities joining Gettr. And that trend is not restricted to just Gettr, by the way. So it's also happening on Gab. Gab sent out an email recently talking about, we have over 50 candidates running for office. Look at all these politicians on here. Here, in the past 30 days alone, Gab has had over 70 million visits. Gab is about to become one of the top 1,000 websites. Now, here's the risk for Gettr. The risk for Gettr is that they have built these iPhone and Android apps, and they can be banned off of certainly iOS and Android, just like Parler was banned. I don't know what infrastructure Gettr is using if they're on AWS, but same thing, Parler was kicked off of AWS. That to me is the very impressive thing about Gab, is that they've raised basically no money from outside investors, basically no money from institutional VCs. They have built their entire tech stack themselves. Like they have their own servers, right? Not on AWS, not on the cloud. They have built their own payment system because they've been banned by all the banks that aren't processing credit cards. Like you can't go on Gab and they have a premium subscription, but you can buy merchandise from them. You can't do it with a credit card. The banks won't process it. They have literally been blacklisted by not only big tech, also platform monopolies, the Visa and the MasterCards of the world, and PayPal, etc., which are also in our platform index. These are large public platform stocks, many of them just payment platform monopolies, have also banned them. Just goes to show you the trials and tribulations that these companies have had to go through, right? Most tech companies now, you just go on AWS, you just use this payment portal, boom, right? You don't have to go and build all this stuff out. You know the saying, you don't need to reinvent the wheel? These companies have had to reinvent the damn car with multiple wheels and the engine inside, just to operate. And the ones that haven't, like Parler, have been kicked off, and have had their executives ousted, have had their investors shaken up, have had their audiences all, flee when you're offline for that long. And it's a war. It's a war. And I think that the vendetta platforms are up to the challenge. The funny thing is also, I've heard from multiple sources that the CEO of Rumble is a Democrat. This isn't a political thing. This is about what this country was founded on: liberty and free speech, which is being invaded upon on a daily basis, which is being encroached upon more and more and more. I think you're going to see Trump's SPAC make an acquisition. I don't think that what they are building, I don't know. I think they're building something, but there are multiple viable acquisition targets. I think they'll probably buy Gettr. Gettr, again, was started by Trump's former advisor. You know, they're getting Joe Rogan. They're getting a bunch of signups. They so far do have iPhone and Android apps that have not yet been banned off the app stores. But, you know, you have to expect that that'll eventually happen. And you have to build your business understanding that these big tech monopolies will wield that stick eventually. Gettr has raised about $75 million. And I think, the only investors I see are actually this guy, DWAC, who we've actually showed some of his interviews on the show before. This is that Chinese billionaire who defected from China and has talked about how China is basically just a house of cards, printing endless amounts of money, and, you know, talking about just illuminating a lot of the corruption and kind of inside happenings within the CCP. And so obviously the CCP and their cronies, both in the US and elsewhere, have tried to discredit this guy, DWAC. And so anyway, it looks like he's the main funder of Gettr, which is hilarious. But yeah, it's $75 million. You look at the current market cap of Trump's SPAC, which is around $2 billion. They got hundreds of millions of just cash from the initial SPAC and then the pipe that they raised behind that. So they could easily do a deal with Gettr if they wanted to. It's just very hard to go and build a business from scratch. I guess what Trump's thing is called Truth Social, but, you know, where is it? And when you launch, there's just a lot of challenges to build these things. Now, not insurmountable, but you've seen Gettr just in a short period of time, which is not even a year old, amass tens of millions of users. Are we going to see, let's say, consolidation in 22? No, I don't think so. I think there's actually room for multiple of these platforms, even within each one of these platform types, right? In the book, we identify 8 different types of platforms, right? A content platform is different than a social media platform. I think you actually have room for not one, but a couple in each of these areas at the point in growth that we're at now, right? We are not at the point where you're going to see that winner take all dynamic, you know, truly come to a climax, essentially, right? There's still so much growth here. There's still so much migration that can happen away from big tech. And I think that's going to keep going to these new content platforms, new social media platforms. So I think that this is really just a big growth year where what you are going to start to see is you are going to see who's breaking away from the pack, right? Who's really starting to capture a lot of engagement and is able to keep and retain the engagement and then grow that, right? And start to kind of get some critical mass, get some network effects really going, right? That's going to be the question. I think you're going to start to see people saying, oh, let me go try a few of these. But then where do they keep going back to? And it won't just be one, it'll be a couple in each of these categories, but you're going to start to see, there's actually a lot of these players, you're going to start to see which ones are really kind of out in front and how are those businesses going to be capitalized. Gab, as I mentioned, is trying to not take outside money. How is that going to go when you got Rumble has a $500 million market cap and a bunch of money? So this thing's only going to keep picking up. More and more people are waking up every day. More and more people are just done with these big tech monopolies and are looking to go elsewhere. Hi, I'm Alex. Thanks for watching the show. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, but even better, make sure to follow us on Odyssey, follow us on Rumble, and text us 203-646-5159. Text the word Monopoly. You'll be subscribed. You'll get updates about when we're going live, our latest videos, and we'll send you even a little goodie bag. And in the event that we all get banned from big tech, we'll still be connected.